The Battlestar Galactica moved through deep space like a quiet giant. Its metal body was worn, marked by old battles and long travel. Around it drifted the last human fleet, made of ships that once had other jobs and other lives. Now they were homes. Lights burned inside them day and night. Children learned to walk in narrow halls. Older people watched the stars and remembered Earth. Everyone knew they were running, but they also knew they were still alive. Commander Robert Hale stood on the main deck of the Galactica. He was not a loud man. He did not shout orders unless he had to. He watched screens, listened to reports, and made small choices again and again. He believed survival was not about one great move, but many careful ones. Each jump, each repair, each shared meal mattered. He trusted his people, even when plans were not clear. Captain Mark Lewis worked close by, studying long lines of data. He had sharp eyes and a quiet mind. While others looked for danger in obvious places, he looked for small changes. A delay where there should be none. A signal that faded too cleanly. A pattern that felt wrong. He had noticed these things for weeks. Something was watching them. Not attacking. Not helping. Just watching. Far beyond human sensors, hidden in deep shadow, the alien observers waited. Their ships were smooth and dark, shaped by logic instead of comfort. Their kind had studied many species before. They believed survival followed rules. Order created strength. Control created safety. Chaos led only to failure. Humans to them looked chaotic and weak. The aliens watched the human fleet closely. They recorded how often humans argued. How often they broke routine. How often leaders changed plans without full data. To the aliens this looked like failure waiting to happen. They believed humans survived only because old systems still worked by chance. Once pressure increased, humans would collapse. The observers sent small tests. A signal burst here. A false reading there. Nothing that would be noticed as an attack. Just enough to see how humans reacted. On the Galactica, a warning tone sounded softly. A sensor showed a strange echo, then vanished. A junior officer frowned and reported it. Mark Lewis listened. He did not dismiss it. He asked for the data again. He asked someone else to check it using a different system. The readings did not match. Instead of locking down the deck or calling it a fault, Mark shared the problem. Engineers, pilots, and analysts gathered. They spoke openly. Some ideas were wrong. Some were strange. No one laughed. They tested what they could. They did not find a clear answer, but they learned something new. The echo reacted to observation. When they changed how they looked, it changed too. Commander Hale heard the report and nodded. He did not demand certainty. He allowed more time. He adjusted the fleet's path slightly, not away from danger, but sideways. It was a small move. To the aliens it made no sense. The observers paused. Their models did not expect this response. Humans were supposed to tighten control, not loosen it. They were supposed to follow set rules. Instead, humans shared doubt and acted anyway. Days passed. Life in the fleet continued. People worked, rested, argued, and laughed. Fear was there, but it did not stop them. Children played games in hallways. Doctors like Emily Foster moved between ships, helping the sick and listening to worries. She believed fear grew when people felt alone. So she spoke gently and often, even when she was tired. The aliens watched these moments too. They did not understand them. In their own society, emotion was controlled and limited. Care was efficient, not shared. Yet humans seemed to grow stronger by sharing weakness. Another test came. A navigation error appeared just before a planned jump. Old rules said to delay and double-check everything. That was how fleet stayed safe. But time was short. Fuel was low. Commander Hale did not choose alone. He called his senior crew. Opinions clashed. Voices rose. Then they settled. They voted to split the fleet's jump timing, reducing risk instead of removing it. It was not perfect. It was flexible. The jump worked. Not cleanly, but well enough. The alien observers recorded this as a failure of logic. And yet, the humans survived again. Mark Lewis grew more certain they were being studied. He shared his thoughts with Hale. Hale listened and said something simple. Then let them watch, he said. We won't pretend to be something we're not. That idea puzzled the aliens most of all. Humans did not hide their flaws. They did not smooth their rough edges. They adapted openly, learning as they went. The observers believed collapse would come soon. Humans were tired. Resources were thin. Old ships could not last forever. The aliens prepared deeper tests. But as they watched, a strange truth began to form in their records. Humans did not survive because their systems were strong. They survived because their people were willing to change together. Habit did not trap them. Rules did not bind them. Choice moved them forward. On the Galactica, stars drifted by in silent beauty. No one knew how close unseen eyes were. No one knew they were being measured against old ideas that could not bend. The fleet kept moving. Not because the path was clear, but because stopping was not an option. And somewhere in the dark, the aliens began to doubt something they had believed for a very long time. The days grew heavier inside the fleet. Machines that once worked without trouble now failed often. Power dropped without warning. Water had to be counted. Food was measured and shared carefully. Every system felt tired, like the people who depended on it. Still, the fleet moved on, one careful step at a time. Dr. Emily Foster walked long hours through narrow halls and crowded rooms. She treated burns, broken bones, and deep exhaustion. But her hardest work was not with tools or medicine. It was with words. Fear spread faster than illness. Anger followed close behind. People argued over small things. Old pain rose to the surface. Emily listened. She let people speak even when they were wrong or unfair. She reminded them that stress made enemies out of friends. She spoke softly, but she did not lie. Supplies were low. Loss was real. But panic would not help. When she finished her shifts, she sat alone for a moment, breathing slowly, then stood up and kept going. In the hangar bays, pilots prepared for patrols that felt less useful each day. The enemy did not appear openly. Old tactics waited for a clear target. That target never came. Daniel Wright leaned against his fighter, staring at the stars through the open bay. He had flown by the book for years. The book no longer felt right. Anna Moore joined him. She was younger but sharp and thoughtful. She asked questions others avoided. "Why do we fly the same paths every time?" she asked. "If someone is watching us, we make it easy." Daniel nodded. He had thought the same thing but had not said it. Together they brought the idea to their squad leader. The answer was not quick approval. There was debate. Voices rose. Some pilots trusted tradition. Others trusted instinct. In the end, they tested small changes. Different routes. Different spacing. No single pattern. The results were strange. Sensor echoes shifted. Silent signals moved away. Nothing clear, but enough to suggest someone was reacting. Far away, the alien observers watched this with growing confusion. Their models expected humans to hold tighter to old plans under pressure. Instead, humans loosened them. They allowed many ideas to exist at once. They did not demand one correct answer. This made prediction hard. The observers increased stress again. A system fault spread through a support ship, cutting power and airflow. It was meant to force strict command. Instead, something else happened. Engineers, medics, and crew members acted without waiting for full orders. They shared tools. They moved people by hand. They sealed sections using parts never meant for that job. No single leader controlled the effort. It was loud and messy. But it worked. Commander Robert Hale watched reports come in. He did not interrupt. He allowed people to solve problems their own way. When it was over, he praised cooperation, not rank. That mattered more than perfect order. Emily Foster was there when the last crew member was safe. She sat on the floor beside a shaking engineer and held his hand until his breathing slowed. Later, she wrote notes about stress signs she had seen. She shared them with other doctors and counselors. Knowledge moved fast through the fleet. The aliens recorded all of this. Their logic systems flagged errors. Humans were not following expected paths. Fear did not cause collapse. Loss did not cause surrender. Instead, it caused change. On another day, fuel reserves dropped lower than planned. Old rules said to conserve by slowing travel. But slowing made the fleet easier to track. Navigation teams argued for hours. Charts filled screens. Voices overlapped. In the end, they chose a risky option. Short jumps. Uneven timing. Less fuel wasted, more uncertainty accepted. It worked well enough. Daniel Wright flew one of those jumps. His hands shook at first. Then he trusted the team. He trusted Anna's math. He trusted the engineers who kept his ship alive. When he landed, he laughed, surprised by himself. Fear had sharpened him, not broken him. Anna wrote new notes for training. She did not erase old lessons. She added to them. She believed knowledge should grow, not replace. Others agreed. Training rooms filled with discussion, not silence. The alien observers paused their tests. They reviewed records again and again. Human behavior did not fit clean lines. It shifted. It adapted mid-motion. Their systems struggled to follow. One observer suggested a new idea, one that made others uncomfortable. Perhaps humans did not survive despite uncertainty, but because of it. The thought was marked as unstable. On the Galactica, night cycles came and went. People slept when they could. They shared stories. They remembered Earth. They made plans without knowing if those plans would last. Emily Foster stood near a viewport after a long shift. She watched distant stars and thought about how fragile life felt. Yet it kept moving forward. Not in a straight line but in many small steps. The fleet was tired. It was strained. It was far from safe. But it was alive. And somewhere in the dark, the aliens struggled to understand how a species so imperfect could refuse to fall. The change came without warning. One moment the fleet moved in steady silence, the next alarms echoed through several ships at once. Power grids failed in patterns that made no sense. Navigation screens filled with false readings. Doors locked and unlocked on their own. It felt like the fleet was breaking apart from the inside. People froze for a heartbeat. Panic tried to rise. Then training and instinct took over. Engineer Paul Carter was deep in the lower decks of a supply ship when the lights died. He did not shout. He did not wait for permission. He pulled out a handheld lamp and began tracing cables by touch. The failures were not random. He could feel it. Systems that were never meant to speak to each other were suddenly silent together. Paul made a choice that would have made old engineers angry. He cut safety limits. He linked power lines across sections using backup connectors meant only for testing. It was risky. It could have caused fires. But it worked. Power flowed again, weak but steady. Other engineers copied the idea. They did not wait for instructions. They shared diagrams, quick sketches, short messages. Within minutes, broken ships found new ways to breathe. On the Galactica, Lieutenant James Walker heard reports flooding in. Orders from command were delayed by interference. He realized waiting would cost lives. He gathered a small group of crew members who knew each other well. Pilots, techs, security. No long briefing. Just a clear goal. Find where it hurts most, he said. Fix what you can. Move fast. They moved through damaged corridors, helping trapped crew, sealing leaks, carrying tools instead of weapons. James did not follow a map. He followed sound, heat, movement. Where people gathered, help was needed. Losses came. A small transport failed to restart its engines and drifted too close to a radiation field. Rescue crews saved some, not all. Names were recorded. Silence followed. There was grief, sharp and real. But there was no stopping. Dr. Emily Foster worked non-stop as injured crew filled medical bays. Burns, cuts, shock. She saw fear in their eyes but also focus. People asked how to help even while hurt. She gave simple answers. Hold this. Press here. Breathe slow. Fear did not own the room. Daniel Wright and Anna Moore flew cover during the chaos. Enemy ships did not appear but traps did. False targets. Sensor ghosts. Old rules said to chase threats. They did not. They ignored the bait. They stayed close to the fleet, trusting their judgment over habit. The alien observers watched closely. This was the breaking point. Pressure had reached levels that shattered other species. Their records showed collapse, rebellion, or blind obedience. Humans did none of these. Instead, humans broke rules openly. They shared risk. They acted without full control. Fear did not freeze them. It pushed them to think faster, to notice more, to listen harder. The observers increased the strain again. Communication delays lengthened. Command signals became unclear. This should have caused chaos. It caused cooperation. When orders failed, people talked. When plans broke, they made new ones. Authority shifted naturally, not by rank but by skill. Whoever understood the problem led only for that moment. Paul Carter watched power levels stabilize across 3 ships. His solution was not perfect, but it spread fast. He sent a short message, "Ugly fix. Works for now." Others replied with improvements. Knowledge moved faster than fear. James Walker's group reached a sealed cargo bay filled with trapped crew. The door controls were dead. James did not wait for tools. He used a manual release others had forgotten existed. They pulled the door open together. When the air rushed out, they held on. When it settled, they smiled, tired and shaking. Somewhere far away, alien logic systems began to fail. Human response curves did not match predictions. Stress did not reduce options. It increased them. Pain did not narrow focus. It spread awareness. One observer flagged a disturbing pattern. Human losses were high, but learning speed was higher. Each failure improved the next response. The system labeled this behavior as dangerous. On the Galactica, Commander Robert Hale listened to reports as the crisis slowed. He did not speak for a long time. When he did, he thanked people by name. Not for obedience, but for thinking. The fleet limped forward, scarred but alive. Later, as repairs continued, people shared what they learned. Mistakes were discussed openly. No one hid them. No one was punished for trying. Training materials changed overnight. New warnings were added. New freedoms too. Emily Foster sat with a young crew member who had lost a friend. She did not explain the loss. She stayed present. The crew member cried. Then they wiped their face and asked when they could help again. Fear had sharpened them. The alien observers recorded a final note for this phase. Humans did not behave like controlled systems. They behaved like living ones. Pressure did not crush them. It shaped them. The observers felt something new. Not understanding. Concern. The battle began in silence. No warning. No clear enemy shape. One moment the fleet moved through open space, the next space itself seemed to twist. Sensors flared and died. Signals crossed and vanished. The first explosions were distant, then closer. Confusion spread fast. On the Galactica, command screens went dark one by one. Orders left the bridge but did not arrive. Replies never came back. Voices overlapped, then cut out. For a few long seconds, no one knew who was in charge. Then people acted. Pilots launched without waiting for full orders. They flew by sight and instinct. Daniel Wright saw Anna Moore's fighter take fire from an unseen source. He did not ask permission. He moved between her ship and the threat, trusting she would do the same if needed. She did. Others followed. No formation held for long, but no one flew alone. Support crews worked under fire. Shuttles rushed toward damaged ships even as warning lights screamed. Crews did not know who they were saving. Names did not matter. A life signal was enough. Risk became normal. Inside the fleet, corridors shook. Fires broke out. Gravity flickered. People held each other upright when the floor failed. Teams formed without planning. Someone shouted a need. Someone else answered. Tools passed from hand to hand. Lieutenant James Walker moved through the chaos with a calm that surprised even him. He did not try to control the whole battle. He focused on the next person in front of him. The next problem. He trusted others to do the same. When he saw a team act without orders and succeed, he let them continue. Dr. Emily Foster worked in a medical bay that lost power halfway through the fight. Emergency lights painted faces red and gold. She moved by memory, not sight. Nurses followed her lead. When equipment failed, they used hands. When medicine ran low, they chose carefully and fairly. Far beyond the fight, the alien observers watched. This was the moment they expected collapse. Their records showed that command failure always led to panic or rigid obedience. Humans did neither. The observers made a choice. They interfered once. Just once. They altered a signal, guiding a human squadron into a false gap, testing a theory. The humans did not follow the signal. The pilots felt something wrong. The silence did not match. They trusted each other instead of the data. They split, crossed paths, rejoined in ways no system predicted. One ship took damage but drew fire away. Another slipped through and struck back. The trap failed. Alien models updated in real time and still could not keep up. The battle raged on. Time lost meaning. Some ships fell back. Some surged forward. The Galactica took hits but held. Its crew worked with hands and hope, patching wounds faster than damage spread. Anna Moore flew with smoke in her cockpit. Her instruments were dead. She followed the shadow of another fighter and stayed close. When her engines faltered, Daniel Wright was already there, guiding her with short flashes of light. No words passed. Trust was enough. On a cargo ship, an engineer cut power to his own section to save another. He did not know the people there. He only knew they needed time. He gave it. The aliens watched their control models collapse. Human choice was not random, but it was not fixed. It shifted with trust, memory, and feeling. No single rule applied. No clean pattern held. The observers felt something close to alarm. A species that could not be controlled by fear or command was dangerous in ways weapons were not. Slowly the battle faded. The enemy presence withdrew, leaving wreckage and silence. The fleet counted losses. There were many. There were survivors too. On the Galactica, lights came back on in stages. People sat where they were, too tired to stand. Some laughed softly. Some cried. No speeches were made. Commander Robert Hale walked the decks after. He did not praise victory. He thanked people for trusting each other when systems failed. The alien observers sealed this data with caution. Their final note was brief. Human behavior under total failure could not be predicted. The models were no longer useful. And the humans, unaware of how close they had come to being judged and ended, kept moving forward together, carried by trust instead of control. The silence after the battle felt heavy but calm. Broken ships drifted slowly as repair crews moved between them. Lights blinked back to life across the fleet. Engines hummed in uneven rhythm. The human fleet was damaged, but it was still moving. Far away, hidden beyond human sight, the alien observers made their final decision. Their screens were filled with data, broken models, and failed predictions. Lines that once pointed toward human collapse now bent in every direction. No future held steady. They reviewed everything again. Fear tests had failed. Control traps had failed. Even direct interference had failed. Humans did not act as a single system. They acted as many small ones linked by trust and choice. The observers sealed their records. A final label was added. Humanity was marked as a dangerous variable. Not because of weapons. Not because of numbers. But because humans adapted faster than fear could stop them. They could not be guided, trapped, or shaped by simple pressure. With that, the alien ships turned away. Engines folded into silence. The Watchers vanished into deep space, choosing distance over risk. Humanity was left alone, unaware of how close the end had been. On the Battlestar Galactica, life slowly returned to routine. Wounds were treated. Names of the lost were spoken with care. Repairs continued without rest. Training changed again, shaped by hard lessons. Anna Moore stood near a wide viewport, looking out at the stars. Her fighter was being repaired. Her hands still shook when she thought about the battle. She did not know she had been part of something greater than survival. She only knew she was still here. Stars stretched across the dark like quiet promises. Some were bright. Some barely visible. None offered clear answers. Commander Robert Hale walked past and stopped beside her. They did not speak at first. Words were not needed. Finally, he said that the fleet would jump again soon. The path ahead was uncertain. It always was. Anna nodded. Uncertainty no longer frightened her. She had learned that plans could fail and people could still succeed. Across the fleet, similar thoughts took shape. Engineers shared new designs made from broken parts. Doctors rewrote care rules based on experience, not theory. Pilots trained to trust each other more than screens. Emily Foster watched patients rest and felt quiet pride. They were tired, scared, and hurting, but still kind. Still willing to help. She believed that mattered more than perfect health. James Walker reviewed reports and saw something important. The fleet was not stronger than before. It was wiser. It had learned how to bend instead of break. The Galactica prepared for its next jump. No one knew where it would lead. No chart promised safety. Still, people packed tools, shared food, and checked on neighbors. Humanity did not survive because the future was clear. It survived because choice remained open. When old rules failed, new ones were made. When fear rose, it was shared and softened. When systems broke, people held the line together. The fleet vanished into light as the jump began. Behind them, the galaxy remained unchanged. Ahead of them, the unknown waited. And somewhere in sealed alien records, a simple truth was written and locked away. Humans endured not by control but by choice.